Okay, hello. I apologize in advance for any coughing, sneezing, sniffling, hacking, anything like that. I've got a mix of a head cold and pneumonia going on right now, but I really want to get this out of the way so I don't have to deal with it. Also, the lighting's wonky. My lights kind of kick in and out when they feel like it, and my cat is sleeping on my lap, so I don't want to disturb her. So we're just gonna hang out here and deal with it as is. So I'm going to talk about the transition from the Carriere motion appliance to braces. I've had my braces on for about 8.5 months. It'll be 9 months at the end of February. So I feel like I've got a pretty good idea in my case of what I'm talking about. So I've got a good enough foundation to kind of talk about the transition. The transition's really not that fantastic, honestly. It's very exciting, obviously, to go from the appliance to braces because you kind of, at least I noticed, I saw so much more change in my teeth than when I had the appliance on. I didn't really notice much of a change, so it was really exciting. And when you go from the appliance to braces, you might start with top braces, you might get both, it just depends on you. I started with top for the first 3 months just because I needed to have a tooth taken out, but we weren't 100% sure on if we were going to take the tooth out yet, so we kind of put the top braces on first to see how everything lined up, and then eventually we decided to take the tooth out after those 3 months. So I had top on first, and I will say that the Carriere motion appliance is almost like training wheels for your top teeth, because I found that my top teeth really didn't hurt that much. I was eating normally. It was still a little sore, like I was eating normally, but I could still feel it, but it didn't restrict. And it really only hurt for like a couple of days. And then for the bottom braces, it was very painful. It was probably about the same, if not worse, than when I got the appliance on. It was very painful for a couple of weeks, probably about 2 weeks. And once I actually started getting used to it, that was when the tooth came out, and then I got another wire change. So it was like constant pain on my bottom arch for probably like 2 months. So that's a little bit different than something that you might experience. But yeah, for me, bottom teeth were way worse because they had never experienced really any movement. They'd had the pressure from the retainer and like the elastics pulling, but they never really moved, or at least they shouldn't have moved. So that was my experience anyway. Top teeth, not so bad. Bottom teeth hurt pretty bad. And then the other thing that kind of comes with it when you're transitioning is the elastics. You'll probably be stuck with them for the rest of your treatment. You might not. It depends on your case. But you probably won't be wearing them the same schedule as you did when you had the appliance on, because to my understanding, most people with the appliance, you wear them 24/7, you take them out to eat, and then you put them back in, and you change them out a couple times a day. So for me, before I even got the appliance off, I was moved to wearing my elastics only at night, just because the only reason I wore the appliance for an extra month was until I could get my braces on. So yeah, for me, I was doing the elastics at night earlier on, but when I got the braces on, I continued for the first 3 months. Actually, for the first 6 months, I was wearing my elastics only at night, both sides. Everything was pretty normal. And then when we got to November, my orthodontist noticed on my left side there was a little bit of overcorrection, and it wasn't like a really big deal, but she didn't want it to get worse. So she moved me to wearing my elastics every second night. And then in January, the overcorrection was still there. I don't know if it had gotten worse at all, but it hadn't gotten any better. And so she said no more elastics on the left side. So I've been wearing them every second night on the right side for the past month. And so far, so good. So maybe if there's any overcorrection on my right side, we'll stop wearing elastics altogether. I don't know. But for right now, right side elastics every second night. Yeah. So yeah, your elastic schedule will definitely change. I think it's probably pretty normal to wear them every second night. And if you do find, like if you forget to wear them one night, or like maybe your mouth is really sore, sometimes when you get adjustments, your teeth hurt really bad and it's hard to wear your elastics. If you like miss a night, you can just wear them for like the next day to like kind of make up for that time. You really shouldn't miss a night, but like it happens. When I got my tooth taken out, I had a lot of issues wearing my elastics. It would get so painful that I just couldn't wear them. So just make sure that you're on time with it, and if you're not, do what you can to correct whatever time you would have lost. Other than those two main things, I don't think there's anything else that's specific to the Appliance. I think most of my experiences are very typical of anybody who has braces, Appliance or not. So I won't get too much into that just because there's tons of content like that on the internet that I don't need to contribute at all. But someone did leave a comment asking me specifically to go over pain and flossing for braces. And pain I kind of got into in terms of my top teeth hurt a lot less than my bottom teeth. And oddly enough, I've had adjustments on my top teeth that have hurt more than getting my braces on. But generally, when it comes to adjustments, my teeth hurt anywhere from a couple of days to about a week, usually not that much more than that, except for the time when on my bottom teeth I had the option to go up 1 wire or 2 wires, and I chose to go up 2 wires. That hurt for about a month, so that was really painful, but it worked out okay in the end. The other thing is power chains. I'm in the stage where there's a lot of power chains because we're closing a lot of space, and those can be really painful for a little while. You get used to them. So I would say with braces, any adjustments other than when you first get your braces on, usually about a week, except for that up 2 wires situation. And that's really it for pain. Managing pain is about the same as it is for managing Appliance. Pain, ibuprofen, Advil, whatever it's called wherever you live. And wax is really good for braces, not so good for the Appliance because where most of the friction is happening is those elastics rubbing up against your cheeks, and you can't really do too much about it. But with the braces, you've got a lot of rubbing on the brackets, and in that case, wax is really helpful. The wax kind of smooths over the area so that it doesn't have as much friction. So that helps. Orajel is another thing that I like to use. I used it with the Appliance. I actually forgot to mention it in my last video. But I did like to use Orajel as kind of like a fast-acting solution, just because you can use that antiseptic rinse to help get rid of sores, and you can use ibuprofen or Advil to help with just like general pain. But because both take time, like usually ibuprofen takes about half an hour for me to kick in, or the antiseptic rinse usually takes like a couple of days. The Orajel is a really good way to kind of numb the area until the whatever you're using can kind of get in and do its thing. That's really it for pain, honestly. The main thing is just try and do whatever makes you feel better, because it's going to be different for everyone. So the other thing they were asking about was flossing, and I have done 2 different ways of flossing. I've done water flossing and then traditional flossing. The one thing I will say about water flossing is that there's mixed information from what I found on whether or not you can use water flossing as an actual substitute for traditional flossing. Some people say you can, some people say you can't, so I can't wholeheartedly recommend that you substitute water flossing completely and do no traditional flossing. The way that I did it was I would water floss most nights, and then once a week I would do like a deep dive with the traditional floss. That was how I did it, but again, I don't want to recommend that just because I don't know if that's safe. So I would still say you should traditionally floss just in case. But my water pick that I was using actually died back in August. I had my braces for about 3 months and it just stopped working. I took it apart, tried to fix it, and I wasn't going to buy another one. So I just gave up and started traditionally flossing. So I will give you my tips for using a water flosser and then my tips for traditional flossing, because I have done a lot of both. So for water flossing, the 2 main tips that I really have is 1, use warm water. Don't use hot water, but don't use cold water, because if you have sensitive teeth and gums like me, it'll suck. And I didn't really think about it the first time. I just put water in it, and then it was awful. So yeah, warm water is a good idea. And then the other thing is that it's really hard to kind of get that balance when you're first starting to use it, where you're not filling your mouth up with water by like closing your mouth all the way around that little little tube, and then you're also like getting water everywhere because your mouth is like wide open. So I kind of did like a fish face, kind of like great image for you, I know. But that's kind of how I did it, to like, the water would still come out, but it wouldn't get everywhere. So a bonus tip that I have is to keep your thumb on the off button while you're using it, just so that you don't have to like find it later. I know I've had times where I forgot to do this, and I had to like take it out of my mouth and like try and spray it in the sink without getting it everywhere to find the off button. So yeah, keep your thumb on there. Keeps it nice and organized. And that's kind of it for water flossing. It feels real weird at first, and it's hard to get used to, but I liked water flossing. I thought it was faster than traditional flossing, obviously, but obviously my water flosser died. It abandoned me. So I had to move on to traditional flossing, which isn't bad. I will say it's gotten easier as time has gone on. It's just annoying. The one thing I will say about traditional flossing, though, if you have recently got an adjustment, or like when I got my tooth out, a lot of times when your teeth are really sore, it's really hard to floss, so kind of just do your best. But when it comes to traditional flossing, I like Super Floss. Super Floss is really good. It's got like a little threader built into the end of it. But if you're just going for regular kinds of floss, I would say I prefer satin finish flosses over wax finish, just because I find the wax finish kind of gets torn up by my braces really quickly. There's a lot of hooks, there's a lot of things to get caught on, and I just don't find it does as good of a job holding up against all of the metal. So I would say the satin finish is better for that. I really like it anyway. And so I've been using just like, I have like a whole bunch of like little packets of satin finish floss, so I haven't been using my Super Floss as much until I run out of that stuff, but I've used both. I like both. I would say like normal floss without a threader is kind of hard, but you can do it. If you don't feel like getting a threader, or you don't want to use Super Floss, you can do it. The main thing about threading it is it's really hard to get into your back teeth. And so I use these little picks. I would grab one, but my cat's sleeping on my lap. But they're really, really thin. I think the brand is just like a generic brand. But they're the thinnest that I've ever found. They're like pancakes thin. And they're really easy to get in between your teeth. And I like to use them to get underneath the wire and get stuff out from underneath there. But also I find it's not so useful for my front teeth, just because there's so little space in my front teeth that nothing gets through anymore except for the string. But I do like to use some of my molars on days that I'm having a really hard time threading that floss through, just because your mouth is kind of hard to get back there. So I would say for threading, you always want to go like the opposite direction from your gums. So if you're on the bottom teeth, you want to thread up. You're on your top teeth, you want to thread down, just so that it's easier to grab it. It's hard to grab it when it's like jammed underneath your lip. So that's kind of like the biggest tip I really have, is just to thread it away from your gum line. And then, like I said, for the back teeth, it's just kind of a game. Like, you kind of just have to toss up whether you're going to get back there or not that night. And sometimes I use a pick, and sometimes I can get the floss back there, but just depends. So the last thing that I'm going to talk about is something that I wanted to mention in my original video, but because there was so much information, I kind of just forgot to include it. But it is the sensation of my teeth cracking. And this is something that I've never heard anyone else talk about. The only place I've ever heard it mentioned was like an obscure braces forum from like 2006. And I talked to my orthodontist about it, and it's totally normal. But basically what happens is sometimes if I'm pushing on my teeth or I bite down, I get this like feeling, kind of like when you crack your knuckles or your back or one of your joints or something. It's just like this popping sensation. The first time it happened, I freaked out. I thought I broke a tooth. But it turned out it was totally normal. And you can actually start to, like, as you get used to it, you kind of feel it differently, I guess. It doesn't actually feel like your tooth is breaking after you recognize what it is, but the first time it's very jarring. I thought I would mention it because it scared the hell out of me the first time it happened. And it's not super common, obviously, because not a lot of people are talking about it. But if this happens to you, it's totally normal. Because it scared me so bad. I thought I actually, like, destroyed one of my teeth. But the structural integrity of all of my teeth are fine. It's just they snap, crackle, and pop. when they move around. I don't really remember the science behind it. My orthodontist explained it. It's just basically meaning that your teeth are moving. And it's kind of gratifying in a way, because that way when I get like a wire change or like I've got power chains on or something, I push on my teeth and I can tell which ones are doing something, and it's like kind of exciting. And that's really it. There really wasn't that much to talk about this time because a lot of my information about the appliance was in that video, and so this is just kind of like a follow-up very briefly. Hopefully much more brief than the first one. I don't really have much more to add about my orthodontic journey, but if you do have any questions or anything else that you want to know about, you can always leave me a comment. I do my best to answer all of my comments. Sometimes I miss a couple, but I do my best. So yeah, just leave me a comment. I don't really plan on making any more videos about my teeth unless there's some kind of topic that somebody wants me to cover. This will probably be the end of it, but I might see you in the future, I might not. So if I do, I will see you then. So if you're like me, you will have your lights go out in the middle of filming. Or these are top braces. Yo, there are ghosts in here. Can I just get underneath it first before you get all excited? You're fine. Come here. Up. You want up? Okay. What? You're so silly. I'm sturdy. You can step on me. Here you go. Oh, is that nice? Is that good? Where are you going? Oh. I don't know what this is. Stuck with elastics. Why does this always happen to me?